Hello and welcome. Welcome to today's Vote Pop-Up training with the Democratic Engagement Exchange. My name is Bailey, and I'm going to lead you through this short video that'll talk you through how to engage your community members and educate them about the election coming up on October 24th in Ontario. I'm joining you from the Democratic Engagement Exchange, which is a nonprofit dedicated to building a vibrant and inclusive democracy where everyone has a voice. We are a nonpartisan organization based at the Toronto Metropolitan University in the Faculty of Arts. And we are super grateful to be hosted in the Faculty of Arts, where this faculty is really putting theory into action. So thank you so much. I want to start today by talking a little bit about what's at stake during this election and really with democracy around the world. So some of you may remember the story from the Ontario provincial election on June 2nd, just earlier this year, where previously in 2018, 57% of eligible voters had come out to vote. In this recent election in 2022, it was only 44%. Now that's actually 1.5 million people who had previously voted and did not this time around. This is an alarming statistic. And this is why we are bringing Vote PopUp to your communities with urgency for these municipal elections that are happening all across Ontario. Now, if you look at the next data point, we'll see that in municipal elections, voter turnout is historically much lower. In 2018, across all of Ontario, it was only 38%. So only 38% of people who can vote did vote. So that begs us the question, what will this look like in 2022? Now, we know that voter turnout is not the only measurement of a healthy democracy in Canada or in Ontario, but it definitely is one. And today our focus is around how to engage voters, new or infrequent voters who maybe are lacking the confidence to see themselves as voters or the information to know how to do it or who to vote for. While we don't advocate for any campaigns or candidates, we want to make sure that everyone has access to all the information about where they're voting in their ward and their city so that they can make the decision that's best for them. Like I said, voting is not the only indicator of a healthy democracy. In fact, it's neither the beginning nor the end of the story. At the Democratic Engagement Exchange, we think of engagement on a spectrum. The spectrum starts with having friends and family interested in politics. That'll sometimes move a person into talking or thinking about politics, and then reading the news or watching the news or listening to their podcasts on the news, which then leads them to decide who to vote for. So there are so many steps in engagement before someone begins to think about who they're going to vote for and actually takes the step to cast a ballot, to vote. Now, like I said, engagement doesn't end on election day. It doesn't end with voting. We see with this spectrum that folks who've then decided to vote maybe have the opportunity or the information to get more involved. This might look like volunteering on a campaign or organizing an all candidates debate, or even just attending one in their communities. Finally, it takes us to influencing policies. We are working towards a mission where everyone has a voice, and those voices shape the policies that affect our communities. This is what we are working towards. And that's why we see voting as one of the critical steps in that spectrum, but neither the beginning nor the end. So that begs the question, how do we engage with new or infrequent voters? I'm going to introduce you to Zara. Zara is a 21-year-old woman who is in a community college and works part-time during the school year. She knows that there's an election, but has never followed politics closely. Zara is concerned about buying a car to get to school and work. So this is Zara, And this is a woman you might be familiar with in your community, a client that you serve, or someone who you interact with at the grocery store or at the library. So you as a community organizer is going to think about, how am I meeting Zara where she's at and providing her information about the election? So I want to ask these questions to you, and I'm going to invite you to take the time to think about these answers. My first question is, where is Zara on the spectrum of engagement? So if we go back, we know that Zara knows there's an election, but has never followed politics closely. So let's go back. Where would you put Zara on the spectrum? Yeah, maybe somewhere around talking politics and reading the news, maybe having friends and family interested in politics. It's not entirely clear. I think that we would put her close to the beginning of the spectrum. My next question is, how and where would you reach Zara to discuss the upcoming election? So in your community or through your work, where might you reach her? If we go back, we know that Zara spends time at her community college and works part-time during the school year. Where do you think you would find Zara? And my final question is, how would you talk to Zara to move her along the spectrum of engagement? What information or messaging do you think that she should hear? I'm going to share some answers that have come up in our workshops. So we asked, where is Zara on the spectrum of engagement? And participants will usually say she is somewhere around having friends and family interested in politics, or even reading the news. We asked, how and where would you reach Zara to discuss the upcoming election? And we've heard very creative answers, from the college campus to a library or the local gym, even a public transit stop. And finally, how would you talk to Zara to move her along the spectrum of engagement? Here are some things we heard. You might ask her about her concerns. You might connect her concern about buying a car to municipal issues. For example, public transit, road safety, snow removal. These are all going to be things that Zara is probably thinking about. Finally, you know that she is thinking about politics, and now you've connected her issues to the municipal government. And so we think that Zara would probably want to have the right information to decide who she's going to vote for, and the right information so that she can make sure she votes in the election. So that's one example of how we start to think about the different ways that we connect with new or infrequent voters. At the Democratic Engagement Exchange, we developed a tool that we began using in 2015 called the Vote PopUp. Now, the Vote PopUp was created as a free, easy to use resource that community organizations or leaders in the community could easily adopt into the work that they're already doing. So for example, if you run a language class or a parenting class or a hot meal program, the Vote PopUp is something that you could set up at the entryway to these programs. Or if you're in the library, meeting folks who come by after school every day. Again, this is something that you can set up to interact with parents or even youth. I'm going to show you a quick video to demonstrate what the Vote PopUp can look like and what community leaders say about it.
Everyone has a voice. When our voices are heard, when all voices are counted, our communities are more resilient and our democracy is stronger. Elected officials get their political will from the people. We give them our power with our votes. When we vote, we are expressing our concerns, hopes, and dreams for the future that we want. So we start with a question. What matters to you?
What matters to me is human well-being,
The urgency of climate change,
indigenous rights, environmental issues,
affordability, childcare. At the end of the day, politicians and the government are accountable to the people.
Vote PopUp gives you everything that you need to run a simulated polling place to help demystify the voting process for first-time and infrequent voters. Our free toolkit includes everything that you need: a ballot box, a voting screen, and a quick guide to teach you how to do it.
When we stop and ask people what matters to them and then listen to their answers, our community and our democracy is stronger.
I'd highly recommend Vote PopUp for every organization that is trying to break down barriers to democracy, because it starts conversations, it inspires people to participate, and it helps to alleviate any fears that are involved with the democratic process and the voting process.
It's a platform where they raise their priorities, their concerns.
Our youth advisory groups are trained on how to do vote pop-ups, and they will empower other youth and engage with them to get them to come out and vote.
I love that it uses election time to get a conversation going.
It's important for me for people to feel like they have power and that they can be a part of democracy.
Voted a couple times, you walk in, fill a couple boxes and you leave. What's easier than that?
I've never experienced voting before. In Canada, people have the right and privilege to vote. So I think people should take the advantage of that.
But we need your help to make this happen. Join us in building a vibrant, more inclusive democracy, and have fun while you do it.
So that is your introduction to a vote pop-up. Now, you might see that I have some props behind me today. I'm gonna walk you through what it looks like. A vote pop-up occurs in 3 easy steps. It starts by asking someone what matters to them. And then we do this radical thing and just listen. Often you'll hear people say, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before, or, I need to think about it. With a little support, people will often end up sharing many, many issues that matter to them, and that's great. The next step is that we help practice voting. So research tells us that one of the barriers for new or infrequent voters is that they don't necessarily know what it's going to be like. They can't imagine on election day. Is it going to be scary? Is it going to be embarrassing? Are they not going to know what to do? So for this reason, we walk someone through the practice process of casting your ballot. Finally, we invite people to share with us why voting matters to them. And we put that up on the wall or on a glass door, somewhere to show the entire community why voting matters to their fellow community members. This is such an important question and practice, because in doing so, we're showing folks that their opinions matter and why they vote matters. And so important to us that we are displaying it for everyone to see. When we invite people to share why they vote, it creates a snowball effect where more and more community members see their reasons and become able to identify that they are a part of something bigger than themselves, something the size of the entire community or the entire municipality. So those are the 3 easy steps. I want to show you our sort of theory of change and why we connect this simple exercise to creating systemic change where every voice can be heard. It starts by connecting voting to people's concerns or needs. So when we ask this first question, what matters to you? And we give space for people to share and to put it up on the wall, we have the opportunity to begin to connect the daily concerns and needs of community members to municipal government. and by extension, the municipal election. The next thing we do is we arm them with information to do something about it. We help people understand elections and when, where, and ways to vote. And I'm going to get into those things in a few moments. Finally, in doing this, we build community confidence. And this is why it's so important to share what folks told you about why voting matters to them. We build community confidence so people can use their voices, vote, and participate in democracy between, after, and before elections in whatever ways make sense to create the change they want to see in their communities, in our communities. We have 3 core principles that underlie what we do. The first is that we are nonpartisan. And when you start this conversation, we invite you to also share that you are nonpartisan. This is one of the reasons why Vote PopUps work. We're not here with an agenda. We are not here to promote a candidate or a party, but here to surface what matters to people and what they can do about it. The next thing we do is meet people where they are. So that's why we start with this question, what matters to you? And by listening to the answers, we let people know that their voice matters. Finally, we go to them. We encourage you as the community leaders, as organizers and organizations who are reaching community, to set up a Vote PopUp where people meet and gather in your community. So if you think back to our example of Zara, we didn't, send her an invitation and ask her to come to us at this date and this time to a location she hasn't been to before. That won't necessarily work. Instead, we go to her, whether it's at her college or at the bus stop. We bring the information to her to ensure that she can use it. So I showed you a video earlier of what some Vote PopUps have looked like. Here is one example where a community meeting that's happening sort of in the background has a Vote PopUp set up right here so that folks who are walking in and out of the community meeting can practice voting. So if you look below, it starts where you welcome someone and ask them to share what matters to me. With your Vote PopUp kit that we'll send you, we'll provide a poster. You can see it behind me that says what matters. We also have great sticky notes that will also come in your kits where people can write their answers on it and stick it onto the poster like you see behind me. We then ask people if they're thinking about the municipal election or if they've practiced voting. At this point, folks may tell you that they're ineligible to vote or they've never voted before. To any of these possible answers, we still encourage people to practice and try, whether they're ineligible to vote because they are a newcomer or they're a teenager and they don't yet have the right. We know that one day they might be voters, and we want to begin thinking about that early on. So when that election comes, they're excited to get to the ballot box. So we set you up with a voting screen and a sample ballot. I'm going to walk through the sample ballot in a moment. We ask them to mark off on their sample ballot some of the options in front of them. We then have them drop it into this ballot box. And then they have just practiced voting at a practice ballot box. This might also be a great place to have an information table. So you might want to share a flyer about how to vote, a reminder of what dates the election is, and maybe also a reminder of the different kinds of proof of residency or ID that someone could bring with them on voting day. Finally, we direct participants to the final poster that asks why we vote, which is again behind me and above. Again, with stickies that look like this that ask why vote. We display that loud and proud so that the entire community understands that this is a community that's voting. This conversation can take 2 minutes, or sometimes it'll lead to a 20-minute robust conversation about the issues in the community, about how municipal government works, about how you can talk to your candidates. There's so many opportunities for conversation, and that's the great thing about the Vote Pop-Up. It's a small little setup that draws in curiosity and conversation. With your Vote Pop-Up kit, we equip you with a Vote Pop-Up organizer guide. Now that is sort of a lengthier guide that includes the information in this presentation and more. It includes information about how Vote Pop-Ups work, how to organize a Vote Pop-Up, and additional important FAQs that you might get asked when you are running your Vote Pop-Up. This will come with your kit when you order a Vote Pop-Up kit from us. Another thing that can be ordered separately that's a great resource at your information table, or that can be put out anywhere where the public meets, is our Ontario Municipal Election Readiness Handbook. This is a handbook that can be sent home with people, or that you can use in an activity in the programs that you run. In it, it starts by helping folks figure out what matters to them. It goes into some detail about who is elected in municipal elections and how municipal governments work, including school boards. It has a section on how to find candidates and how to talk to candidates, how to find out what they care about and figure out who you want to vote for. And finally, this book includes some great information about voter ID, accessibility, and other frequently asked questions. So once again, this is something that you can order from our website, and we've seen these put out in lobbies, handed out at candidate debates or resident council meetings. Or if someone doesn't have time to do the Vote Pop-Up, but they just want more information, you can send them home with one of these handbooks. Now, let's talk about this municipal election and how it differs from other recent elections. Before we start, I want to share this reminder, a very important reminder, that the municipal election is on Monday, October 24th. Now, in various municipalities, there are ways that you can vote in advance. There are advanced polling dates. In some municipalities, although not all, there are also options such as a mail-in ballot. And if you're in Markham, you even have 10 days to go online to vote. So there are different ways to vote, and the period will be different in different municipalities. However, one thing we know is that across Ontario, the municipal election day and the final day to cast your ballot is October 24th. So I mentioned that there's some key differences in municipal elections. We've had a provincial election and a federal election in the past year. And when you're preparing your community members to vote, even those who are regular voters, there are some key differences that I would encourage you to share so that there isn't confusion. The first one is that in provincial or federal elections, you elect representatives for a political party, and those political parties are often listed on the ballot. Now, in municipal elections in Ontario, there are no political parties. Each candidate is representing themselves, their values, and their plan. Now, this can create a challenge. It means that it sometimes takes more work for individuals to align themselves with a certain candidate. Sometimes it involves more research. But the great news is that this research can be done together. There are links to your candidates' websites and platforms on your local municipality's website. And through this, your candidate can be influenced by your community to adopt a certain policy or maybe even change something in their platform. There is a lot of room to advocate, and that is a really exciting thing about municipal elections. Now, some more differences. In provincial or federal elections, how you vote is the same no matter where you are. But in municipal elections, how you vote differs from municipality to municipality. For example, I mentioned Markham, who has online voting. This is a very special feature. In Toronto, there's a mail-in ballot period. And in Mississauga, you can send a proxy for your vote. Different municipalities also have different advanced polling dates, different hours that you can go vote, and other key differences. So we'll share some resources at the end of this so you can better understand how to vote in your own municipality. The next difference is that in provincial or federal elections, you vote for one position, right? You're a member of parliament or you're a member of provincial parliament. Whereas in the municipal elections in Ontario, you can vote for 3 or more positions. So in some major cities, such as Toronto, Hamilton, or Ottawa, you'll vote for 3 positions. The mayor, who will represent the entire municipality, a city councillor, who will represent your ward, your community, your neighborhood, and then a school board trustee. Now, in other regions, such as Peel region or York region, you may also have the opportunity to vote for a regional councillor who will represent you at the region of Peel or the region of York. The next difference is, for municipal elections, the options for ID, or what we are calling proof of residency, are huge. There's so many options. I'm going to go through those in a few minutes. But what you need is not a photo ID, but a proof of residency. So your address, where you live. We'll go through that in a moment. Finally, and this is a very cool fact, in provincial or federal elections, students, and in fact everyone, has only one vote. Now in municipal elections, you have a vote for every permanent address that you hold. So if you're a student who has a home with their parents and then lives in another jurisdiction on campus or off campus, you might be eligible to vote in 2 different jurisdictions. So for example, if you're a student from Guelph and your parents' home address is in Guelph, but you live in downtown Toronto and attend TMU, you might have the ability to vote in 2 jurisdictions. That is double the power. And that's a pretty cool thing that students have access to. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the ballot. What you'll see in front of you is our practice ballot. This is an example of a practice ballot in a large city where you have 3 different roles that you're electing on your ballot. The first one is mayor, the second one is your councillor, and the third is your trustee. Now, we didn't put names on these practice ballots, but instead we put issues. So when you're holding a Vote PopUp, you can ask people to vote on the issue that they want for mayor. So maybe they want a mayor who is going to do something about housing, and they can mark that one down. And maybe they want a city councillor who's going to do something about parks and recreation, and they can mark an X. And then finally, maybe they want a school trustee whose emphasis is on class sizes, and they can mark that X. I want to mention something about school boards, which is that in Ontario, you can vote for one of 4 different school boards, and everyone can vote for the school board, regardless of whether or not you have kids in the public school system. In most municipalities, you will be automatically sort of signed up to vote for the English Public School Board. However, you can visit your municipality's website to figure out how to change that if you would prefer to vote for the Catholic School Board or the French school boards. Otherwise, you can also request a different ballot when you go to vote on election day or at the advanced polls. Now, I've mentioned that in every municipality, voting is different. So we've created these easy handouts, these flyers that provide information about advanced voting days, election day, how to find out whether or not you're registered, whether you need to be registered, who's running in your ward, and any other important information that is specific to your municipality. And you can access these from our website. On the back, we include a document of all of the acceptable proofs of residency that you can bring with you to vote. Now, an easy one is always an Ontario driver's license that has your address. However, that might not be an option for some folks. So let me pull out a few interesting examples from this list. You could bring your child tax benefit statement. You could bring a statement of old age security or your Canada pension plan. You could bring a statement of direct deposit for Ontario Works or Ontario Disability. You could bring a property tax assessment. You could bring a utility bill or a phone bill, or finally a transcript or report card from a post-secondary school. There are so many options, and I invite you to keep this on hand. So when you're talking to community members who are making their plan to vote, they also have a plan for what kind of proof of residency they'll bring with them. Now, I want to share another very exciting piece of news with you, which is that if you're serving clients who have no fixed address, fear not, they also have the right to vote, even if they have no proof of an address. So I'm taking this from the Municipal Elections Act for Ontario for clarity. It says that if a person has no permanent lodging, they may, and I'm going to skip down to read number 1, the place to which the person most frequently returned to sleep or eat during the 5 weeks preceding the determination is his or her residence. So this means if you have a community member who has no fixed address and has been making use of a meal program or a food bank or a shelter, they can use that address to go vote. So that person can go to the polling location in your ward, and they can swear an attestation, which is really just a form, that is a place that they have been using for lodging or sleeping or eating, and they will have the right to vote at that address. So that is your introduction to the Vote Pop-Up. We have so many resources on our YouTube page. You can sign up for a workshop, or you can give us a call, send us an email, and ask any questions about how to plan your Vote Pop-Up. So I want to leave you with these questions to plan your first Vote Pop-Up. Where will you hold it? Bearing in mind that we want to go where our community members meet. When will you hold it? And what's the best time of day to reach people? Who is your audience? What resources do you need to bring it? So I filled in the first one for you. It's a Vote Pop-Up toolkit, which you can order from our website. Other things you might want are a table, flyers with more information about how to vote in your municipality, and maybe food or coffee, because that is a great way to get the conversation going. Finally, I want to ask, how will I or my organization measure success? Will you measure success by having 30 conversations in a day? By converting 10 new voters? What does success look like for your organization? And what are your hopes and dreams for your community in this election? Now for some next steps. You can access all of these resources at our website, engagedemocracy.ca. There you can order your Vote Pop-Up kits and election readiness guides. You can sign up for our newsletter. And when you hold a Vote Pop-Up, share photos with us. We'd love to hear how it went. Share your journey with #VotePopUp. You're now joining thousands of community organizations across the province and across the country who have held a Vote Pop-Up to make sure that their community members have the opportunity to make their voices heard. Welcome to the movement, and thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.